Redwater Canyon, Arizona Territory, summer of 1876. The desert did not speak, but it remembered. Every gust of wind carried the bones of something that once lived, a man, a dream, a promise burned under the same red sun. Cade Nez lived alone in that silence. His cabin stood against the canyon wall, half stone, half shadow. The mornings began with the scrape of a whetstone and ended with fire dying to embers. He hunted when hungry, slept when the heat broke, and talked to no one but the horses and the wind. The town called him a ghost, half man, half curse. They said he killed both white men and Apaches, that no side claimed him. Cade didn't bother denying it. Ghosts don't explain themselves. He carried the same wound each day, the memory of the massacre he refused to join, and the faces that paid for his mercy. Every sunset was a reminder that survival was not the same as peace. One evening, while crossing the wash near the wagon trail, he smelled it before he saw it, smoke and blood mingling on the hot wind. The sky was orange, the ground blackened. Burned wagons lay broken like ribs of a dying beast. He dismounted. The buzzards lifted slow from their feast. Among the wreckage, he found what was left of a family. Men gutted, horses gone, a Bible open in the dirt. Then, a sound. Faint, rasping. A woman's breath. She was half buried beneath a broken wheel, her face streaked with blood and ash. One eye swollen shut. She tried to move and failed. Cade knelt beside her, pressed 2 fingers to her throat. A heartbeat, weak, but there. He looked at the road, then back at her. The world would call her lost. The town would call him murderer for touching her. But something in her face, the stubborn flicker of life, broke through his armor of silence. He lifted her in his arms and carried her toward the canyon, leaving the ashes behind. The wind shifted. The desert, for the first time in years, whispered his name. When she woke, it was to the smell of juniper smoke and the sound of water dripping into a clay bowl. Her body ached like she'd been dragged across the earth, because she had. Clara McRae blinked through the haze. The cabin walls were rough-hewn, light slanting through cracks. A man sat near the fire, sharpening a knife with slow precision. His hair hung to his shoulders, black as soot. His face was scarred, unreadable. She tried to speak. Only air came out. He turned, met her eyes, and poured water into a tin cup. When she flinched, he stopped halfway, waited. Then placed the cup beside her bed and stepped back. Hours passed. She drank. He said nothing. By the second day, she tried to sit up. Pain shot through her ribs. The man came forward, hands raised, not to restrain, but to help. His touch was careful, as though he'd never been allowed gentleness before. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Redwater," he said. His voice was low, shaped by 2 languages. "You were left for dead. Who are you?" "Cade." He paused. "You don't need to be afraid." But she was. Not because of him, but because of what he wasn't, a savior that made sense. That night, when she couldn't sleep, she heard him outside, murmuring in Apache. The words were soft, almost prayer. By the end of the week, he'd built a shelter of shade cloth to keep the heat from her wounds. When he brought her food, he placed it on the ground and walked away, giving her the choice. The first time she said, "Thank you," he looked startled, as if no one had said those words to him in years. He nodded once, then left. Outside, the wind picked up over the canyon. Inside, her breath evened. For the first time since the raid, Clara dreamed, not of fire, but of rain. Time moved differently in Redwater Canyon. Days stretched long, nights hummed with the sound of crickets and loneliness. Clara grew stronger. She began helping where she could, fetching water from the spring, feeding the horses. Cade watched her from a distance, saying little, moving like a man afraid to disturb the air. Once, she caught him watching her mend a torn shirt. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. "You should rest," he said. "I'm tired of resting." He almost smiled, almost. When a dust storm rolled in one afternoon, they worked side by side to secure the roof. Wind howled through the cracks. Sand whipped their faces. In the noise, Clara shouted, "Why do they fear you?" He didn't answer. When the storm passed, she found him outside, staring at the horizon. "They call me Ghost," he said finally. Easier than remembering who they killed. She understood without asking more. That night, she hummed an old hymn while washing the bloodstains from her dress. Cade listened from the doorway, his hands still, the melody drifting through the dark like smoke. For a moment, he saw not a victim, but a survivor, and in her voice, something like forgiveness. The canyon changed with the season. The monsoon clouds gathered heavy and black, rolling like judgment across the sky. Clara sat by the fire, her locket open, thumb tracing the faded face inside. "My brother," she said quietly. "He was 14. They made me watch." Cade said nothing, but the lines in his face deepened. He added wood to the fire. After a long silence, he said, "They made me watch, too. My people. My kin." She turned to him, eyes wide, pain mirrored in another shape. "Why didn't you stop it?" "I tried." His jaw tightened. "It cost me everything." The storm broke outside, lightning cracking over the cliffs, thunder rolling through the stone. He stood, went to the doorway, let the rain hit his face. She followed, trembling but alive. "Then you're not cursed," she said softly. "You're just alone." He looked at her. The rain ran down both their faces, washing dust and fear away. Neither moved. The storm raged, but inside the silence, something fragile began to live. Word reached town that a white woman was living with the Apache ghost. By dusk, the riders came, 3 bounty men and Sheriff Amos Rudd among them. Clara saw the glint of rifles before Cade did. He stepped outside, unarmed. "Morning, Sheriff," he said. Rudd's face was stone. "We're taking her back. Folks say she's been taken against her will." Clara stepped forward. "I stayed." "Miss, you don't know what he is." "I know exactly what he is," she said. Rudd's eyes flickered. "Cade Nez, you're under arrest for murder and desertion." Cade's hands lowered to his sides. "You think justice comes easy in this place?" The wind stirred the dust between them. "Then we'll make it easy," Rudd said, cocking his rifle. Cade looked once at Clara, a silent question, a farewell in one breath. She stepped between them. "You'll have to shoot through me." The sheriff hesitated. In her eyes, he saw something no law could name, grace shaped by survival. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then, from the ridge, Nature's voice called, "Riders coming." The bounty men turned their guns toward the ridge as Nature appeared, leading a band of Apaches armed and ready. The air grew electric, thunder without lightning. "Go," Cade told Clara. She shook her head. "Not this time." The world held its breath. One man fired first, a mistake. The rest followed. Dust. Smoke. The sound of rifles cracking against stone. Cade moved with deadly calm, his rifle an extension of old Ghost's. Rudd tried to flank him, but Clara grabbed the sheriff's arm. "Enough." When the smoke cleared, 2 bounty riders lay in the sand. Nate stood breathing hard, his gun lowered. Rudd dropped his weapon, shaking. "You could have killed us all," he said. Cade's voice was quiet. "Maybe that's what it takes to make you listen." The sheriff looked at Clara, at the tenderness in her touch as she bound Cade's bleeding arm, and knew words would only shame him. He turned away. Rain began again, soft this time, washing the blood into the thirsty ground. By autumn, Redwater Canyon bloomed with wildflowers. The rains had left it green, something rare, something undeserved. Clara tended the small garden outside the cabin. Cade worked nearby, mending the fence Nate had helped build. The boy visited often now, laughter returning to a place once ruled by ghosts. At night, the two sat by the fire. She read from her old Bible, not as faith, but as memory. He listened, eyes soft beneath the flicker of flame. "I used to pray someone would find me," she said. "You were never lost," he replied. Silence settled between them, warm and whole. Outside, the coyotes called. Inside, the firelight held. The desert that once devoured life now cradled it. And in the hush before dawn, the wind moved through the canyon like a blessing, whispering not fear, but peace.